Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Nanda Bella. My ID number is 20210160019. I'm from TBA1. And then in this video, I will explain about the problem equivalence in the theory basic translation. And then first is problem that we'll face in the translating are idiom, because idiom are a series of words that are unique, cannot be interpreted literally, and produce new meaning, but represent a certain expression implied in it. And then Egonida distinguishes two types of equivalent, formal and dynamic, where formal equivalent focuses attention on the message itself in both form and content, but dynamic equivalent is based on the principle of equivalent effect, that the relationship between receiver and the message should aim at being the same as that between the original receiver and the source language message. In trying to solve the problem of translation equivalence, Newberg postulates that from the point of view of theory of text, translation equivalence must be considered a semiotic category comprising a synthetic, semantic, and pragmatic component following Peirce's categories. And then where semantic equality takes priority over synthetic equality and the pragmatic equality condition, and modifying the other two elements, equivalent as whole result from the relationship between the sign themselves, the relationship between sign and what they stand for and what they use. And then text signs are in opposition to sign and structure outside the text. Therefore, a translator must be between both autonomous and communicative aspect, and any theory of equivalent has to consider both of these elements. Therefore, equality in translation cannot be approached as looking to it cannot ever exist between two target language versions of the same text, let alone between source language and target language version. And then next, B, common mistake in translation. If you know the most common mistake in the translation process, you can take steps to avoid that. Here they are. First, the translator leaves out some of the text that appeared in the source document, and then the second, the translator misinterprets the meaning of the text and the final translation giving the wrong message. And then C, the translator incorrectly identifies abbreviation or misinterprets specific terminology. And then the fourth, the translator or the client includes text or example that are culturally inappropriate for the intended audiences. And then the fifth, the translator is inconsistent in using or defining keyword or phrases throughout to the document or across different documents that are part of the same body of work. And then the sixth, the client accepts change to the translation offered by unqualified and hot reviewers. So C is translation problem and solution. And then first is title. The most important literal translation of title are often a dreadful mistake, and editor and translator must be prepared to corrective. And then example include Sandra Smith's decision to leave the title in French for the American market, Primo Levi's outrage at change made to his book, and La Chief, a Stella's publication in the US, as the Mankey's brands. These examples show that literal translation can be a dreadful mistake, and editors and translator must be prepared to be creative. And then second is stylized language. Translation of book written in particular style, Berkeley, poses its own problems, such as updating to the text to make it accessible or laboring to match it. If the author is alive, translator might need to source and examine original material and critiques in both language to establish the correct mood, tone, and style. And then the third is regional dialect. Hanal Ashah, the Lebanese author of The Sands of Zahra and Woman of Saint and Mirt, has often argued for dialect phrases to be kept in his book. In one example, she had a card say, "My heart was pounding as if it was wearing wooden cloak," which is a direct translation of praise in a southern dialect of Arabic, Hanan says that while living into many unknown cultural references will weaken a book, there must still be an essence of something different. And then the fourth is strong language, the abundance of swear word in other language which the English equivalent can meet. Martin Riker notes that often a translator will clean up strong language in the original without even releasing it. Simple, because he or she is uncomfortable with it. Even if the original author was Robert Kendall, ran into trouble with full language while translating the railway. Our lexicon of course language is strangely limited, and the more flowery courses still prevalent in Russia tend to sound ludicrous if translated literally at all. Next, fifth is colloquialism. It can also help to employ a second translator with a good working knowledge of colloquialism, dialect and slang in the native country, who can get across the meaning and help to come up with English equivalents that are appropriate to the job of the reader and most importantly do not that. And then the sixth is humor. Something heckly funny in other language can fulfill in English. Without lengthy explanation that certainly reduce any humor involved. If a joke is to survive the journey into another language, if it is to hide the mark even when its cultural context can no longer be taken for granted, its point may need to be adjusted or somehow resharpened. And then the seventh is unstable word and culture specific references. Some words, however, simple, don't translate. Prefer to leave this in the text and to provide the reader with a glossary, which can serve the purpose of explaining more obscure geographical and cultural references without interrupting the flow of the text with lengthy description and explanation. A map can also prove invaluable for readers, eliminating traces of foreign genus, completely can iron out the queer and flatten the text, and this is a potential problem that calls for vigilance. And then the eighth is quotation from other sources. In the eighth, some quotes simply do not translate and are backdropped, others must be altered to make their meaning and relevance to the text clear. Sometimes a footnote explaining the meaning of the poem or quote and leaving it its original language is the best alternative. Notes should be made of any other sources from which translation are taken and given the copy editor along with the translation notes. In some cases, permission may be required to reproduce someone else's translation. And then the last is difficult language. Difficult language, there are some language for which high quality translators are viewed and for between forcing publisher either to abandon the idea of translating or to rely on to join effort a pro stylist and native speaker to get balance right. It might also be necessary to translate from a spread language to get altogether because a good native translation simply can't be found. Thank you for your attention. See you and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.